Hello, podcast lovers. Thank you so much for coming back in. I'm your host, Jana, and today we're going to have a conversation with Elzie. Me and Elzie, we have met on an amazing mastermind meeting get together, and I was so fascinated about just the way, what a light you actually were, Elzie. So, first of all, thank you so much for taking time and coming being a guest on my podcast and being an extra journey on my journey because I through you when I heard your story first when we had our private conversation I got so excited. So hello and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited to talk about life, about the journey, because it's interesting that we're all on our own journeys, but it's cool how sometimes our journeys coincide, collide, and collaborate. So I'm excited to be here and have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, speaking of collaborating and colliding and pivoting and all of that, I really want for you to share again your personal story that you told me about when you were a teenager. I was so fascinated with the story because when I heard your story, for me, it really resonated that very early on, you kind of knew somehow what you really wanted to do in life, which is fascinating to me because, when I was 13, I wanted to be a singer, would really I cannot sing. Don't have the voice for singing in the car with my son. Yeah, sure, but like this, no. But it fascinated me so much. So if you don't mind, please share your story again with me, what you told me.
Well, it's not going to be exactly the same as the way I told it when
Right.
we met, but I'll do my best.
Yeah.
So I was born in Chicago.
Mhm.
My mom and my dad, and there were at the time my brother was 6 months old when we left, but they ended up getting divorced, and my mom had ties to Southern Illinois, and so we migrated down to the country. And when I say the country, I mean the country, like no stoplights, one grocery store, one gas station country.
Wow.
And one of the first memories I have when I knew I was in a different world is when we were in Chicago, we didn't play outside because we didn't live in the best neighborhood. And so my mom, she didn't feel comfortable letting us play outside. And so we get down to Southern Illinois, and there's a group of kids, and they're playing outside. So my mom tells me to go and play outside. And so I go, ask the kids, what are you guys playing? And they just fell on the ground laughing because I didn't know what kickball was because I had never
Okay.
played kickball. To them, they did it every day. They go outside, they play kickball. I didn't know any of the rules. I didn't know how to play. Like I didn't know anything. And that moment taught me something. It taught me, number one, to not be afraid, to not know. And it taught me how to move on and move past people not understanding your newness and your freshness, right? Um, because if you're gonna be successful in this life, you have to have thick skin. You have to be able to be laughed at and still laugh at yourself and still, and still get over the hump. And so that moment taught me that. It taught me that to not be offended when people laugh, but to understand that that's their perspective, and then to be able to move on and still make friends. And I use that skill even as an adult, right? I may not always agree. I may tell somebody something and they may get up and walk out because they don't agree. But I've learned that that doesn't mean that we can't still connect and still collaborate and be friends. And so that early on, I had that thing in me that would look at things from other people's perspective. So I was a pretty normal kid. I got good enough grades. I wasn't an A student because I didn't really want to put forth that much effort.
Right.
I got
Yeah.
solid B's. I did what I needed to do to get good grades so I could stay on the basketball team and run cross country. And I knew a couple of things, Jana. I knew that I wanted to have a family because I didn't feel like I had the family I deserved when I grew up, and I knew I wanted to be a business owner. The only problem with those two things, Zana, is I didn't have an example for either. I didn't
Mm.
know anybody that had been, successful with raising a family. I also didn't know any business owners either, but I knew that's what I wanted. And but I also knew that education was important to my mom, and so I ended up going to college for electronics, getting a job because I knew that in order to get a wife, I needed a job. And then in order to get a job, I needed an education. So I got an education and got
Right.
married, had the wife, had a couple of kids. And but my plan was, I'll do all the stuff, right? And then as soon as I can, like as soon as I can, I'm gonna quit my job and do my own thing. And so the plan was working. I was married young, 20 years old to my beautiful wife Victoria. We had a couple of kid a few years later. But the problem was my side hustles weren't working. I was working 40, 50, 60 hours a week at my day job, then I'm working nights and weekends on my side hustles,
Mhm.
and it wasn't working.
Mm.
And I just got to the point where I was physically burned out, mentally burned out, and my body kind of gave out on me, and I got sick. To the point where I'm sitting there at the doctor's office, and she goes and they run some tests. She comes back and she looks at me and she's like, "Go to the pharmacy and pick up this medicine. No, don't even go get gas. Like go directly to the pharmacy. Don't even wait till you get home to take this medicine. Take it in the like if she said my numbers were so bad that she was surprised that I hadn't had an attack already. And so
Wow.
it was that moment where I realized that I can't keep doing this. I can't do both, right? I have to choose. And so my choice was the natural. It's like, okay, I know that being a business owner is the thing that I want to do. I feel strongly about it, not just because I want to be my own boss or call the shots, but I literally feel like I am on this planet to be an entrepreneur and to solve problems through business. And so that's what I did. I started doing my thing full time, and the rest is history.
Wow. So at first, I would like to say congratulations on your own power, right? Because I feel like so much from very early on, if you would have not had that power planted in you, which I cannot help but wonder if it's really truly coming from your mom, that first enlightenment power that you were born with, that she enlightened that real fire. Not only did she transfer it to you, but she kept it kind of going. I want to assume because I don't know where else it could come from other than from God, But for you as a small child to even have such transition and then be in a position of, in a sense, being, I don't even want to say call it bullied because they didn't bully you, but I'm pretty sure it was still painful to be like as a child, like, why are they laughing at me? I honestly, truly, genuinely don't know what this game is, but I want to participate. But then just that backlash, and I feel like that's when we transfer it in our grown adulthood. It happens all the time to us. It's so often that we find ourselves in situations where we feel rejected or we feel like we're not good enough. And if we're not so strongly rooted for any kind of reason, if we don't happen to have that power yet mastered inside of us, then it affects us. It literally can affect us to the core where it's like, okay, they probably right. I am not good enough. Oh, I must be dumb because I don't understand this game. Oh, I must be this because I don't get it from the first try. And for you in that moment to actually turn that into that's cool because this is exactly what I'm learning out of. So when I'm being in a position where I don't know, even though I don't know, even though I have my own idea, even though I have my own agenda and nobody seems to get me, that's okay by me because I know for me that this is what works for me. And I think that's so fascinating for a young teenager or young child to really already have that kind of mindset switch where it's like, you know what? Okay, you guys, I don't get you, you don't get me, but with time, we hopefully will get each other, you know? And so I wanted to point that out and put that out there too, because I think that's so valuable because I feel like that part of you becoming who you are today was just an impact, like you said, because you're still practicing that tool today of walking into situations, even though you're not being understood, or the projects that you started or wanted to achieve were not reciprocated as much as you would hope for, it wouldn't allow you still to doubt yourself. And I think that's really what makes it so fascinating, you
Yeah.
know. So I think, you know, when we cross paths with people, and when we go into specific things of life, it happens all the time, right? It happens all the time where we're like, oh my God, is this really what I'm supposed to do? Like, in my heart, I know so much that this is really what I want to do, but is it even the right thing? Because in my journey, you know, I had to so often have conversations with God. I'm like, is this really what you want me to do? Because if it is, it's not working. It, like, I mean, can you give me a, can you throw me a bone? Can you show, like, can you show me that this is really something you want me to do? And so sometimes that's very challenging, you know, but alone the fact that you understood that there's certain things that do matter for you in your life, and you kind of like really put your thoughts into movement, that's that's amazing to me. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say part of it, um, and not as much anymore in my adult years, but as a child, I was very, and still am in some respects, but I think it's important to note that God would often call you to do things and lean on who you already are, but redirect who you already are in his way, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
in that moment, it was my competitiveness, it was my uh um really my stubbornness that was like, okay, you want to laugh at me, watch this. And so not only did I learn how to play kickball, but I got pretty good at it, to the point where I was probably one of the first people that they would pick, you know, by the end of the summer. So it was that drive in me to not necessarily prove them wrong, but if you're going to laugh, you better have fun laughing now, because I'm gonna learn it, and I'm gonna learn it well. And so to some respects, I'm still that way. It's like in
Mhm.
business, it's like, okay, you can laugh now, but I'm gonna learn this business, and I'm gonna learn it well. And so that sort of competitiveness, you know, is really still present today, where it's like, okay, maybe they're right. I was terrible. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I've learned how to take those negative emotions and strip away the personality behind it, and say, okay, is what they're saying true? Like, yeah, it's true. I do suck at kickball. Don't know how to play. But what do I do in response to that? Right. And so early on, I really got a sense of how to take even negativity and things that would happen for me, and strip away the emotion of it, with respect to evaluating it and saying, okay, what parts of this is true? What parts are not true? What parts can I control? What parts are out of my control? And
Mhm.
do I have the desire to get better at this thing, or to learn this thing? And if the answer to those questions are yes, then you make a plan. You say, okay, well, this week I'm going to get better at kicking. Next week, I'm gonna get better at catching, because those are the two main things. If you can kick really far and you can catch really well, you'd be a good kickball player. And then it's like, okay, well, how do I learn the strategy? How do I learn the personnel? Okay, this person, they kick well, but they always kick to the left field. So just really being strategic about
Right.
the approach to it. And so yeah, but oftentimes, it's the same thing that makes us frustrated, that will make us flourish.
Yeah, I also feel like, you know, when you said everything you said, immediately the word mentorship came to me. Mentors, mentorship, because, you know, even in at more, I feel like back in the days when we went to school, it was like, oh my God, I cannot wait to get out of school. And these teachers, and they're educated and they're showing me, da, da, da. But really, when we got older, I now actually run back to school. I like run back to mastermind meetings, run back to meetings where I can learn something, collaborate with people that have a better understanding or that mastered a specific tool that I'm not so good at. And I would love to pick their brain. I would love to fit in on their time, to do like get like an extra lesson. Because I feel like, as being a mentor myself, in different parts of life, I also need mentorship in other parts of my life. And I think sometimes that's really how do you say correctly in English? Misguided, uh, you know, it's not clear,
Mhm.
no, every mentor has a mentor. That's
Yes.
a fact,
Yeah.
but sometimes I feel like the ego part of us, that part is like, well, if I say I need help in this or that, then how do I really look? Here I am trying to portray something or someone of myself because that's my drive and that's to the core who I am. Yet specific things I haven't mastered and I need help. But how does that really make me look like when I'm saying this? I don't know. I have no idea. Right. And so just that authentic part of really being authentic and saying like, look, yes, it's true, this isn't something I have mastered, but for that I'm really amazing in this, you
Yes.
know and I think sometimes, when we find people, when we come across people or we collaborate with people where we can really learn from each other, it's like the biggest blessing, because we all fundamentally went through the same idyllic tragedies that hurt as much as any, like, it doesn't have to be the same tragedy, it didn't have to be the same example, but the pain and the feeling alone and the feeling not worthy, we all know how that feels, at one point or the other in our life,
Yeah, for sure.
regardless of what household we come from, regardless of what culture we were born into. At one point, we all feel like, oh my God, like, is this like, can I really do this? Like, I'm scared, like I'm nervous, like I don't want to mess up. I don't, so I think that's very valuable too, to always remember that mentorship is so important. Mentorship is so important. And, speaking of, I know that that's part of really what you created with your own life, because you wanted to bring value to the community. You wanted to bring value to people, helping them understand the tools that you already had mastered. And so I think sometimes it's a little bit challenging, I think, to get people to help you, because a lot of times it's all about the revenue, it's all about the money, it's all about what can you do for me instead of what can I just give to you for free because I can. And it doesn't do anything for me. And that's why I'm so happy that we connected, because with you, I feel like your type of personality, you're just a very kind, giving person. And if there is maybe something that you can tell somebody and it can help them, it can change actually their perspective, then it wouldn't be anything where you look back and you're like, well, I should have charged $150 for this advice, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm a firm believer that, which is why I love podcasting so much. Um, you learn so much because in
Mhm.
general, people that are on shows, they're there because they want to give. They're there because they want to give value. And I always say, if you can give away everything you know in 60 minutes, then you should go learn more stuff. So that's what we're here for. We're here to
Mhm.
help each other and to give as much information as possible and to give as much value as possible. I had a mentor once tell me, Elzie, I fall into your own potholes. Don't fall into the same ones that I fell into. And so that's my mantra. And every time I open my mouth, I'm hopeful that something I say or something I don't say encourages somebody, or inspires them to think differently or to take a different approach. Because again, that's why I'm here. I believe that I'm on the planet to change lives through enterprise, and part of that is through doing things like podcasts and speaking and things like that, so that people can get to their purpose faster and stay in their purpose as long as possible, because I think that when people are operating in purpose, powerful things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so interesting because, sometimes I feel like when you speak to a specific person, and this might just, to me in my life, this always happened randomly. I always got the best advice from the total random people that I barely even had any personal connections to, but somehow we ended up in the same situation and the conversation just organically happened. And most of those were so fascinating to me, where I was like, if I would have just gotten, and it could have been just one sentence where everything, the entire 2 months prior, where I was looping and thinking about and wondering, it all made sense with that one sentence from that so-called stranger, where I'm like, how do you know understand this of me so good, better than maybe, at the time my therapist, or better at the time any of my other mentors? It's fascinating to me. And that's why I think it's so cool to always stay so open, to always really stay so open to just not only give but also receive, because I think there's a fine line between just constantly giving but not reciprocating back, and really understanding where your own personal boundary and your own self-respect comes in, to be like, look, I know what I'm capable of giving and I love to give it, but I also know what I'm deserving of receiving back, without any egotistical thinking, without anything fleshly, I'm ego, it's all about me, not that, but just I do deserve, and I'm happy that I can give. But sometimes finding the balance is not easy, especially when you are a giver by nature. When you're like a person, you're like, you take care of everything and everyone, and you're really out there, and you're kind and you're helpful by nature. It sometimes that's challenging to navigate, because you're gonna come across some people that are, yeah, taking with I mean, you offer, how do you say, you offer the finger and they take your whole arm?
Yes, yes.
you know
Yeah. So two thoughts to that. I was producing a podcast one day, and this client, he's one of those people. He's literally like a walking piece of wisdom. You ever run across those people? They say things in passing that, like,
Mhm.
you have to stop them and say, you can't just say that and move on. He's one of those people. And so
Okay.
he's getting done with this recording, and we're kind of just chatting it up. He's asking about my kids, my family, and I tell him any chance I get to brag on them and talk about them, I'll take advantage of it, right? And so he stops in for a second and he says, "Well, Elzie, can I share a piece of advice with you?" I said, "Of course, sure." He said, "Love what they love."
Mm.
And I thought about it, and I'm like, that's so simple, but so profound.
So,
And I took that and I kind of paraphrased it, and I use this term with my son. I call it basket weaving. And so when he gets this new interest, and now he's in medical stuff, and he's always talking about the body and things like that. And so I tell him, and then he'll ask me, he'll say, "Well, Dad, well, what do you think I should do? Do you think I should do this, or do you think I should do that?" And I'll tell him basket weaving. And that's my way of saying to him, I love what you love. So it doesn't matter to me if you do basket weaving. I'm going to come to every basket weaving competition. I'm going to come to practices. I'm going to come to rehearsals, whatever it is that you decide to do. I'm going to support you, and I'm going to learn as much as I can about it, because I want to love with you what you love, so that we have a point of connection, and that that no matter what you decide to do, I'm here to support you. And so that just stood out to me as one of those things where it's simple, but it's profound.
yeah. And I think, when you said that, I love what you love, it just ties into really understanding how relations in general work. No matter if it's a romantic relationship or a platonic relationship or a business partnership or a neighborhood, something, it all really comes back into reciprocity and mutual respect, you know? Because if I don't understand necessarily why you love so much avocado toast, why is that a point of me for us to even have any kind of negativity about it? Like, if that's what you love, when I come over to your house, I bring you some avocados. How about that? Instead of, sometimes I feel like there's so much opportunity to really find the nitty gritty and itty bitty stuff to just have. In German we say make an elephant out of a mosquito. Okay, it sounds a little bit better in German though. when you say it, but making a problem where there's no problem necessary, instead of just having that mutual understanding of the same way you are allowed to dream your dreams and live your life in any kind of way, the very same do I have. And, at the end, if I extend that grace to you of saying, either way, I would maybe not like avocado toast at all. It's not my cup of tea. But if that what makes you happy, I'm not neglecting or disregarding the facts that do connect us. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think that's really important also for people to remember is that every person that touches our lives, either if it's just 1 second and you've never seen that person again, or if it's for a lifetime, they're there for a reason. They
Mhm.
they have an impact. They have a job to do in your movie. You're kind of like the director, and you basically place them there to come in your life to execute whatever they're executing. And I think sometimes when we look at situations like that, the frustration part is a little bit easier to get over, because now when I look at a situation and say, look, even though you caused me pain and you disrupted my life and you messed up my business, or you really caused me havoc a lot, I still look at you and say thank you, because if you would have not done that, I would have never came out of that pivoting, understanding, rearranging, rethinking the things that I needed to do in order to now be where I am. Right. And sometimes I feel like it's that's an easy, because we want to forget about bad memories. We want to forget about the bad people that did us wrong. We kind of want to pretend like they were never there. But my thing is, I actually now look at all of those situations in my life and look at them and see the value that that pain that was caused to me was actually something that I gained at the end.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic between comfort and growth.
Right.
We actually don't grow much when we're comfortable. I know I don't.
Right.
When the temperature's just right and the wind is just right, I want to kick my feet up and relax. It's the moments when it's cold or it's too windy,
Mhm.
or it took
Mhm.
me a long time to get to work because the traffic was bad. That tests my patience. It's those difficult moments where I found that I've grown the most. So you're absolutely right. It seems kind of backwards, but it's really hard to appreciate sunny days unless you've experienced the stormy days.
Yeah. What was, for instance, one of your last situation like that, where you now look at it and you're like, wow, that was really challenging to deal, but my outcome was that out of it. But when you were entering the situation, or when it occurred in your life, it definitely didn't look like that the outcome will be now what you know now. But what is, for instance, an example where you can look at your own life and you're like, oh man, wow, that I did that, like I did that, I
Yeah.
overcame that.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is this transition to focusing more on entrepreneurship as opposed to specifically podcasting. Um, like I said before, I've been podcasting since 2016, so it's coming up on 9 years. It's kind of what I know is what I do, you know what I mean? And so
Right.
when when God really started to prompt me to focus on entrepreneurship as a larger um space or approach, it's like, well, wait a minute, I've been building this business for 5.5 years, and podcast town, and everywhere I go it's the mayor, I'm this, and it's like, no, well, start to transition away from that, do this stuff. And that was really difficult because I'm a one or a zero. For my electrical nerds out there, there's only two inputs. It's either up or it's down.
Right.
So, and that's me. My personality is I'm a one or a zero, and so it's been very uh, interesting and difficult for me to take that and say, okay, how do I still operate Podcast Town, still have it grow, still, establish the processes and systems so that it runs for the most part. I'm probably about one or two people away from me being just the owner and not in the day-to-day at all. So how do I shift my focus from there to really
Mhm.
focus on helping purpose-driven entrepreneurs build the lives and businesses they were created to lead? Like, how do you
Mhm.
do that mentally, strategically, practically, in a way that, keeps the lights on, but helps, but grows in the direction that I'm being called to. And
Yeah.
that's, for me, that's really hard, because it's like I like to focus on one thing, but I've learned, and I'm learning better, how to give a certain percentage of my attention here, certain percentage of my attention here. And so
Mhm.
it's not balance. I like to call it harmony. If you know anything about music, it's, you have altos, you have sopranos, and you have tenors. Some parts of the song, the tenors are going to carry the melody, so they'll be a little bit louder in the harmony, and the altos are a little bit softer, and they're on the same level as the altos. But some parts and some songs, the altos carry the melody. So I'm understanding
Mm.
more and more, uh, the how to balance things within the with respect to harmony, and not just focusing so much on time for time. And again, so that's a really difficult thing to do, because it's not
Right.
it's not a science. It's more of an art than it is a science. And so I'm learning more and more how to balance that harmony.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to tell you from the beginning, I will steal that from you, from the harmony part. I'm gonna call it the Elzie way of speaking about balance. So just for you to know, whenever you hear my next podcast, and I'll be using it, know it's coming from you, okay?
Use away.
But yeah, I totally get it, because it's really like breaking out of your comfort zone. Do you get me? Like really breaking out of your comfort zone, knowing that this is a set gig no matter what. Like I mastered this, I know it from the back to the front. Like I know every aspect of it. I know every note, I know every play, I know every song. Like I got it all mastered. And then to really listen to that internal intuition that tells you, you know, for me it's God, obviously, but I also like to use the word intuition, because we all have it. That's an inborn chip that nobody can plant, nobody can add. You have it already. And when we learn to actually, instead of thinking so much, but actually transitioning into feeling, it's so different, because we were prompt always to, especially for females. I can say this for myself. I heard it so often. Oh, you're so emotional. Oh, are you in your feelings? Oh, is it that time? Blah, 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 blah. And, I felt like a lot of times when I kept hearing that, I thought this is wrong. I thought that being emotional, or saying what I feel, was actually wrong of me to do. And I kind of dimmed my light in that. But for the last 4 years of my spiritual transition, I now know that I rather enter a situation listening how I feel and checking in with my own body, what it tells me, versus me logically thinking about it. Now, should it make sense? Yes. It should be like a nice equal thing. But if I were to decide, if I can only decide with my heart or with my head, I would choose now today to only decide with my heart. What is that telling me? And sometimes when we get that nudge of like, hey, no, this is really something that you need to do, because truth be spoken, this is how this podcast came about. I never once intended to be a podcaster, ever. Ever in my life have I ever said I would like to have a podcast. Never. But it kind of sort of came out of that, where I felt called literally to have these conversations, and people like you just magically appeared in my life, where I'm like, oh my God, this would be such a great conversation to share. Like there's so much value. There's so much value in this. And so, yeah, but pivoting is not easy, just being like, okay, leap of faith here. I'm gonna jump in that big pool. Yay, here I come.
Yeah.
It is quite scary, especially if you have a family to take care of, like you, one thing, it's one thing, if anything, you can eat ramen noodles all day, God
Yeah.
forbid. But I'm saying, I was there, that's, but you have children, you have a wife, you have, responsibilities, especially as a man, is even more mentally, you need to be strong than females. We're like, okay, well, I will cook a meal and then you'll do the rest, right? So yeah, but I'm happy that you did it for you, because, you know, with a podcast, your tell me more about that. I'm so curious to understand. I know that you do many things for that behind the scenes, but break it down to me again, what it is exactly that you guys do with your podcast business.
Yeah, so basically, I'm a podcast host. My show is called Journey to Mastery, and it's all about helping purpose-driven entrepreneurs build the life and business that they were created to lead. So as a part of that, way back in the day when that guest came on the show and they were like, "Hey, you should help people do podcasts," and that's how I was introduced into the entrepreneurial space. Because when I started, it was called Enterprise Now at the time. I didn't have a strategy. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do in terms of business. I just knew I needed the information. And so that's how it happened. One of my guests one day said, "You're pretty decent at this podcast thing. You should help other people start shows." And that's how Podcast Town was born. And we just kind of built it from there. And we built over the years, we added services on. And so now it's a full service agency where we handle everything from launching the show all the way through monetization, sales, and marketing. So we do all the boring stuff that most people don't like to do. Yeah, and that's what we do mostly on the B2B side for businesses that serve other businesses. So yeah, I'm a host of the show, and then I'm basically teach people how to do what I do for my own show. So it works out pretty good because I get to be a practitioner and help
Mhm.
people with their strategy as well.
Totally. So if I would be somebody that has a desire to start a podcast, but for instance, I have no concept, I don't know what I want to talk about, I don't know where to go. All I know is I would like to do this. I also don't have any guests, but I kind of want to have a podcast with guests, or I don't even know if I want to do that. Should I? Should I not? All those questions. Is that something where you guys come in and also kind of like facilitate and help out? So kind of like acting like a little bit like a business coach for podcasters?
Exactly. Yep. That's
Okay,
that's
cool.
exactly what Podcast Down is. Yep.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, because I think, you know, for me personally, when I started this journey, I spoke out of my own pain. I was sitting at home recording on my computer and I just let it all out. That's kind of how it happened for me. But I was fortunate enough, you know, that somebody in my life that has been a part of my business for many, many years, she offered to take over that part because she's fantastic. So, you know, that part for me is covered. But I remember at the beginning that so many things were thrown at me, you know, like how to use a mic, where do you plug it in? Like there's four things on the laptop, left, right, up, where does it go in? Oh, I cannot hear myself. Okay, we're, you know, and me, I'm not an IT person at all. I'm glad I can text, you know, but for people like that, I think it's fantastic because if they have that journey, if they have that drive. But let me ask you, Elzie. So if somebody would come to you and say, this and this is my idea about a podcast, but you don't think that that's a good idea, would you transparently say maybe you should think about that or maybe not? Or is it really just executing the client's wish?
I would say the former. I'm usually, which is why people call me the mayor because I'm extremely honest, but I'm extremely diplomatic in my honesty. So I'll
Right.
tell you the truth, but I'm always going to do it in a way that's diplomatic. Like, I probably wouldn't just come out and say that's a terrible idea. But I will definitely let you know that you should maybe put some more thought into into the way you're approaching it
Yeah.
in the subjects. Yeah, for sure. Because I don't
Yeah.
think it's fair to people, honestly, to not tell the truth. I think we owe it to each other to tell
Yeah.
each other the truth. I think it's literally hateful to lie to people and allow them to jump off the cliff if you see them walking off the cliff. That's just not right.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's not right at all. And it's not what is that word? Ethical at all either.
Hmm.
It's not at all, you
Yeah.
know. So I'm yeah, I'm glad that you really take the liberty of really explaining it. And I think a diplomatic way is always super nice. You know, for me, I had to learn many things in my life, and you know, expressing myself in a diplomatic, calm, collective way was when I was a teenager to young adult. I was a completely different person than today.
Yeah.
So I took some extra years in school for that to master and get my degree in being calm. But I think it's great. It's really cool to receive that feedback too, because if you really are teachable in your own self and you want to become really that light that you know that you are, and you have these amazing mentors around you, I think really taking advice and being receptive to the advice is huge. Just as huge it is when you are the advice giver, how you really give the advice too. I think that again goes hand in hand. But I think it has to happen. Like you have to be ready, like you said in life, right? We have to have thick skin. We have to be ready sometimes to face situations where that doesn't feel good. This part didn't feel good at all right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that again. So please allow me to learn everything out of it right now so I don't have to go back there ever again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I think too, it's important to know your audience, which is
Mm.
why I'm so excited about sort of this new phase of my career where I'm working directly with entrepreneurs because, some entrepreneurs, they they need that tough love. They need somebody to tell them no excuses. Just
Right.
get up and execute. But some days they need that coach that encourages them. Say, okay, no, you can do it. Keep going. So I think it's really cool, right, to kind of have both in my tool belt
Sure.
because I've been through a few things as an entrepreneur that I can speak to. Hey, I know what it's like to not know if you're going to make payroll. What do you do? How do you
Right.
process that mentally? Like, how do you navigate that? And so I'm really excited about this next 5 years, right, where we're going to help thousands of entrepreneurs, really operate and hone in on their purpose and like they having laser focus and laser clarity on who it is that they want to serve, how they're going to serve them, what their message should be, and really just
Mhm.
scaling their business to become unstoppable because I think that entrepreneurs change the world.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think it's also sometimes, I feel like entrepreneurs are their minds are so extensively always expanding that there's always so many projects that we want to do all at once at the same time. Like I know for me, when I started to be my own boss, there were so many ideas, I want to do this. I want to hone in on this. I don't want to miss out on this. And then for fun, I created a business card with like all these things that I do. And I looked at it, I'm like, girl, okay, you gotta like, no, I gotta find like really my thing. And not to say that I'm a type of personality, I feel like you should be focusing on the thing that you're doing currently 100%. So if you're currently, let's just say, writing an invoice, focus on that. If you're currently writing a contract, focus on that. If you're currently doing dishes, focus on just literally doing dishes.
Yeah.
And I feel with strategy, like you said, and really putting everything in the right brackets and having the mentors set in place for all of those brackets where you personally haven't mastered it just quite yet, I think that's the most successful oneself can set themselves up with. Because, if you can be so good in so many things, but being an entrepreneur and running a business comes with so many little branches from a huge tree, and you don't want to miss a beat either. You don't want to start off at the wrong foot. And I think getting with a business coach or like, a company like yours together and to just really like sit down and really like, here's my idea. I'm gonna just vomit it all to you on a piece of paper or in a call. And you tell me, what do you think? Like, and if there would be so many other things where you're like, okay, all are great, but how about we take the first three?
Hmm.
How about we would take the first three and just hone all, then master those and then move on. Once they're all in the air juggling, now we can add a ball. But I feel like sometimes we add all these balls and it's like, okay, shoot, and so, I know personally for me that for a while I was like, well, but do I do this or do I do that? But I want to do both. And then nothing came out. Nothing came out of it because it was kind of like all over the place. I started honing in on one thing and I'm like, oh, that's frustrating. Okay, maybe not that. I'm gonna just do that. And then the same thing happened over here. And I'm like, oh, okay. So fundamentally, nothing happened, but that's why I think it's so important to really have coaches and life coaches and business coaches or therapists or like any spiritual mentors, energetic healers, like all those different people that are having these different crafts or play a huge role in your life. Obviously, with everything that you just resonate, I'm saying, if you don't resonate with a specific thing, that person doesn't have to do that. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, the stat is that something like 50% businesses fail within the first 5 years. They say that the main reason is cash flow. I happen to believe that the main reason is lack of focus and lack of clarity. Because when you're clear and you're focused, I think cash flow comes to your
Mhm.
earlier point. But if you're trying to do an events business and you're doing a coaching business and you're doing this business and you're trying to do all three, and then I'm not brilliant at math, but that's about 33%, right? So you
Right.
can't be 100% in all three. So I would say clarity and focus are probably the number one and two things that I found that working with entrepreneurs. If I can get you clear on who it is, what it is, where, why, how, and what, and I can get you to
Totally.
focus on that,
Totally.
your chances of success go up significantly.
Totally. And I like to add to clear focus, I like to add consistency.
Hmm.
Because that's really something also where we sometimes have this wishful thinking of, okay, I did one post on Instagram. I'm just throwing stuff out there. It could also be just whatever else, right? Okay, great. You did a post on Instagram, one per week. That's cute. Okay. But if you're not being consistent with the things that you're not trying to really like, you have to set yourself like your goal is to get successful. Like back in the days when we went out after a college degree or whatever, and like, oh, I'm gonna find my first job. And you went out there and you applied and you had interviews and all of that. Your job was to find a job. But as an entrepreneur, your job is to get successful, whatever success means to you, because some people consider success if they make 6, 7, 8, 9 figures. Some people consider success because they're just doing what they love, but they make the same amount of money with a job, or maybe even less, but they're happy inside. They're just balanced and happy and feeling good. So, but I feel like consistency, besides being really clear on what you need to do and being focused, is huge, because if you're not doing your thing on a regular basis, if you're not putting in your effort, it's kind of like depositing money in your bank account. If you don't put something in, it won't stay. I mean, it will stay at the same, but if you keep putting a little bit in, a little bit in, a little bit in, at one point it starts to grow.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, this was so cool. This was such a great conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for coming. And if it's okay, I would love for you to make sure to send me all your info so I can put it below in the bio of the episode. Because when people, really are in the current state of their life where they think they need to break out of their normal life and they want to come and accomplish and do the thing that they feel like they're called to do, I think you'd be a great first contact for them to come and see you. So we want to make sure that whoever, and I don't know who's going to listen to this because I never check any of that stuff. So let's just hope somebody will hear this. But it was so nice having you. Thank you so much for your time and your input and your golden nuggets and just being such a kind human. Thank you.
I appreciate the time and having me, and I enjoyed our conversation.
Great. Thank you. There you have it, podcast lovers. As always, if you have something on your heart, if you feel like you want to share a story with me, come. My mic is open. Until then, stay rooted, stay grounded, and always stay connected to love, the strongest force in the universe.